Hello there. Today I'm talking about autistic stims and specifically stims that can cause us physical harm in some way. And these types of stims may include banging your head or banging your limbs in a repetitive way, punching or biting, skin picking, nail biting, so that's biting below the quick, so that can be really painful, or hair pulling, which is also known as trichotillomania. So I have a couple of less than ideal stims, and in all honesty, I haven't actually seen them discussed anywhere else. So I just wanted to have a bit of a chat about them today in case they resonate with anybody else out there. So, firstly, is drinking, or more specifically, the physical acts of drinking. And I've historically drank loads of fluids, and particularly when compared to other people, there's a real kind of difference with the amount of fluids that I intake on a day-to-day basis. And I remember being in workplaces where they'd have the tea rounds, so people would make drinks for other people, and I would very often have two massive cups of tea compared to everybody else's kind of standard cup of tea or coffee. So it was, yeah, very clear to me that I drank more than the average person. And also, I think this is really interesting. I used to drink really, really strong tea and loads of it. And now that I know that I have ADHD, I do wonder if this was at some level some kind of coping strategy. So I was obviously getting lots and lots of caffeine every day, and I can't drink tea these days. I have to be really careful with caffeine, which I'm really sad about. I used to really enjoy tea, but yeah, it's just something that I've been giving some thought to really, because I've only recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and because of this physical need of drinking lots and lots of fluids. This was a real issue actually because when I got into drinking alcohol, of course, I'd still want to have this kind of behaviour going on. So I'd always choose a long drink. So I would drink pints of lager, and because of this, I would drink essentially way too much. And I liked the effects actually of alcohol as well because I had real issues with social stuff really. So the alcohol helped me to deal with social phobia and talking to other people. But yeah, because of this kind of incessant need to drink fluids, it really caused me difficulties with regard to kind of binge drinking, really. And I should mention, actually, while I'm talking about alcohol, that I had a secondary dangerous stim going on at the same time, and that was smoking cigarettes. And of course, we know that cigarette smoking is so harmful for us, but I didn't care. It was just something to do with my hands. And how many times have we heard this from smokers actually? It's something to do with my hands. But I just couldn't help it. It was a self soothing stim. So, the very act of drinking too much fluid or too much water is that it can be really damaging to the body because you're running the risk of diluting the amount of sodium that you have in your bloods. And this can directly lead to a condition called hyponatremia, which in itself can be life threatening. And I have to say, I've been told off by my doctor before now because when they've done water tests, it's just been way too diluted. And in a way, it makes me feel really frustrated because my doctor told me off. She spoke to me like a child, really, and it frustrates me because many doctors just don't want to get to the roots of the issue. And don't get me wrong, I'm fully aware of the pressures on doctors in terms of time, and they're just not able to give the level of care that they'd otherwise like to. But, why wasn't she asking the questions around why was I drinking too much fluids? And instead, she just told me off and said, essentially, stop drinking so much fluids. And that's all very well and good. It's really obvious, isn't it? If you've got diluted water, of course you should be drinking less. But when this has become so innate to you and your behaviour, it's really difficult just to stop. However, I am really mindful these days of how much fluids I intake because I've learned about the danger involved in drinking lots of fluids. So where possible, I really try and kind of stall myself. So I tend to wait in the mornings now for an hour or so before I have a drink. And I'm really mindful actually after midday to really try and sort of, calm things down because yeah, it's a dangerous stim. So my third dangerous stim sounds really innocuous, but for me it isn't, and it's essentially blowing tiny bubbles in my mouth. Now, as a high masking autistic person, I have blown tiny bubbles in my mouth throughout my whole life. Essentially, I've developed really quiet stims where people wouldn't even notice I'm stimming and blowing tiny bubbles or making tiny bubbles with my tongue, more specifically, is, yeah, top of the list, really. So, how can this be harmful? Well, I have a really, really sensitive choking response, and it doesn't take a lot for me to start choking. I do it so frequently, and a really common cause of this is when a tiny bit of water will hit the back of my throat. So it can happen during drinking, or more specifically, if I'm kind of finishing a drink and there isn't a lots of fluid left in the cup or glass, I'll get a tiny bit of water hit my throat, and then it will create this whole dramatic kind of choking response. It's really horrible. But actually, blowing bubbles in my mouth can sometimes cause this choking response as well. And it can take ages for this to calm down. So, invariably, it will mean that I'll need to kind of sit with a glass of water for maybe half an hour or so, intermittently choking and then trying to get kind of water down in order to kind of calm this response. It's quite difficult to explain, really, but basically, water is the only thing that will help calm this response for me. However, in recent years, this choking response now comes with an even more frightening add on, which is laryngospasm. And if you haven't heard of laryngospasm before, it's essentially when your throat completely seals over. You can't get any air in and you can't get any air out. And this will last for maybe 20 seconds, but it feels like an eternity. It feels like essentially you're dying because it's like your body's just kind of given up. It just is unable to breathe, and it is terrifying. And I've had maybe 6 of these episodes in the last maybe 3 years, and I have been able to link it, I think, to MCAS, which is mast cell activation syndrome, because I went on to a different mast cell stabilizing medication a few months ago, and I haven't had a laryngospasm episode since then. So I'm hopeful that this medication is helping with this, but it is just awful. And this has been caused by blowing these tiny bubbles in my mouth. But again, because it's been a behaviour that I've had for my entire life, I can't stop it, and I'm forever finding myself in a moment blowing or making these bubbles, and it's just a thing that happens without me being consciously aware of it, and I don't know how to get it to stop, really. And it's frustrating to even think that I should make it stop, but when it is a behaviour that can cause such a dramatic effect, um, yeah, it leaves you in a bit of a confusing situation, really. I just wish I could find a replacement stim, but of course, that's almost like an impossible task, isn't it? To tell your brain to come up with something else to do instead of this one behaviour that you've always done. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about specifically these 2 stims today. So, that's the drinking or the physical act of drinking, and this blowing or making bubbles in my mouth, because I haven't really seen them discussed anywhere else, but they make up such a huge part of my personal stimming experience. And I'd love to know if you can relate. Are they something that you've done in your life, or has there been, or is there now, a stimming behaviour that you wish you didn't have? And if so, sending my solidarity to you, because I know how frustrating it is. So I think that's going to be it for today. Thank you ever so much for watching. Give it a like if you got this far, and I'll see you again soon.